Hi, welcome to another art lesson with Mrs. Bailey. Today we are going to create our very own Picasso portrait. You can use paint just as I have done, or you can use felt tip pens or pencils, so whatever you have lying around. Okay, let's go and create our very own masterpiece. Now, to start with, you will need a pencil obviously, and I have a pencil with a little rubber on the end because I find that if I'm painting, if there are any areas that sort of go a bit wrong, if I haven't rubbed them out, sometimes they show through the paint and that annoys me a little bit. So yeah, if you need to use a rubber just to rub out some little mistakes, and that's okay. What you want to do is when you're drawing this, draw it really lightly, because obviously if you use a really sort of heavy line to draw your shapes and you do go wrong, it's going to be really impossible to rub out and it will show through your paint. So really light. So beginning with the face, I'm doing what I like to call a shield shape. So it's a bit like an oval to begin with, and then at the top I'm just flattening it out, so you'll see what I mean. You can see it just looks like a shield. And then I'm going to divide my face. So I'm just going to come down a bit, and then I'm going to draw the nose. So this is, if it's a sideways profile, sorry, kind of look. So I've got my nose in profile as such, and the lips, I'm going to do profile lips. Now this kind of looked a little bit like a love heart when I first drew it. So, and you'll see I'm just keep going over lines. It's very light. I can rub out any areas that I want to. Just getting the shape right first, and then I can just come in and just rub out the areas that I don't want. Really light, just so that it doesn't show through when I start to paint it. Okay. And then a little bit off my chin. Okay, I need to draw the eyes on. So again, this is the profile face, so I'll need to do my eye so that it's in, looks like a profile type of eye, looking sideways, and keeping it really simple. Don't forget you can rub out your lines, but you can see how lightly I'm doing it. There are no heavy dark marks. And then my eyebrow, that will do. Okay, the other eye. So this is the eye that's looking straight onwards, so it's sort of from the front. Now I'm going to try and line my eyes up, so I need my eye to start roughly here. I've lined them up, obviously, because this is a Picasso. You could do your eye round the other way. It's up to you how you do this. It's really, really good. When you practice these in your sketchbook, you'll have lots of fun. You can create some really wonderful ideas. So the eye could be round the other way, totally abstract. And then a pupil in there, and then another eyebrow. Might try that one a bit. Bring this one down a bit, just so that it matches. Doesn't have to, of course. I just had a really good idea while I've been doing this. You could, I wonder if you put the lips as eyes and the eye as the mouth. That would be a good idea, wouldn't it? I've only just thought of that. So the more you practice, the more ideas you'll get. You'll start off where you have none, and then it's just by having a go, the ideas start to flow. Right, I need to do the other lips. So this is just extending the mouth a bit more. go. And, oh, ears. I need ears. Now, you might have noticed in my drawings I've had one up here. And they don't really look like normal ears. Very abstract sort of shapes. Which is why I love this. And nobody's will look the same. It will all be very individual to you and just what you like. So I'm going to do the neck. And I've given mine a little collar just to finish it off. So just a really simple collar, just so it looks like your painting's finished. You could do the shoulders if you want to. Okay, now the hair. I've played around with the hair on some of mine. I had a hat on my gentleman, so you could have a hat if it's a lady. I might try and make this look a little bit like me, so I'm going to go with a bit of curly hair. Don't fuss about the hair. Remember, no details, because it's going to be impossible to paint. Right, that's come down a little bit. Might match the length of the hair on that side. You don't have to, because it is a Picasso, so anything goes. Right, now I'm just going to have a little look at that. Am I happy with it? I think I might just extend this eyebrow so it kind of comes down the same as that one. And then I think I'm more or less ready to go. I'm going to extend my mouth. She looks a bit sad. I wonder if she looks happier once I've coloured her in. Maybe I ought to make her turn her mouth up a bit. I'm not sure I want her to look sad. Yeah, so you can get an expression in there. I wonder if I turn her mouth up a bit, she'll look a bit happier. If it's supposed to be me, I'd rather be happy. Oh, that's better. Look, instant happiness, drawn within a few seconds. Right, I'm going to get my paints ready and show you how to begin painting this. So good luck with your drawing. I'm sure you're going to come up with something really fantastic. Right, I am ready to paint. I have got my paintbrushes, so a medium-sized one and a really little thin one, just to get into those hard to reach places. I've got my water, I've got a selection of colours. I've got an idea of the background colour for the face, but I haven't really decided on the colours of the hair or anything yet. I will do that as I go along. And I have got my paper towels and just a damp one, just so that I can wipe my hands if I get paint on them. So I would recommend, first of all, just wetting your paintbrush. And we are going to start with just painting the background. So the background of the face first. I'm going to start with this side. I've decided to do, I've got some pinks on here. This pink's a bit dark, so I'm going to just mix it in with a bit of white. Notice that I put my white in the middle just so that I can use it to mix my other colours into it. So just making a pink. Now it's not quite right, I can always make it darker or lighter. So with your paintbrush, using quite thick paint, just carefully paint the background. Now when I was learning to paint as a child, nobody ever told me to just do one area at a time and then let it dry. So what I'll show you as we go along. So you need to be really focused. Painting is very mindful. And you might even need to rotate your arts book so that you can get to those hard to reach places. really slow. Don't rush it. Painting's just about really being careful, thinking about what you're doing. You'll notice that I'm really splaying out my bristles on my brush. Makes it easier to control what you're doing. All about control. Okay, more water. I'm quite liking this pink. It's a bit darker than I thought it was going to be. I didn't want it to be too pale, but it's up to you which colours you use. And it doesn't have to be a skin colour. On my others, you'll notice that I used yellow and blues. That looks quite nice. But I thought I'd like to make this one a lot different. So careful. So we're going to go in and do the smaller areas later on. Just get a nice colour on the background. By doing the background first, it helps you to decide where you're going to put your other colours. So I find it quite useful to do that first. And you'll notice I keep turning my sketchbook around, so I find it easier to paint. And if it goes a bit patchy, it's okay, because you can always go over it later. It's a bit like my lady did. She's got a patchy bit on her green face, so I can always go over that and make it look a little bit better. Because I'm using quite thick paint, I just like to go over some of the brush marks it leaves behind. So because I'm coming to the end of my stash of paints, I've got a mixture of watercolours and acrylics, which normally when you paint you don't usually use together, but we're in lockdown, so we can't always get to the shops to buy new stuff, so I'm simply using what I've got. So don't worry for this. I've used, on my other two paintings, I used acrylics and watercolour together and it didn't matter at all. So don't worry, but usually the rule is you wouldn't mix them because you get different effects. So this is an acrylic paint I'm using at the minute, so it's quite thick. And obviously watercolour's a bit thinner, and they are different. When you compare them, they do look different, but hey, this is a Picasso, it's fine, anything goes. Sometimes in art it's nice to break the rules. Quite sure when Picasso first showed his paintings, people were horrified because they didn't look real. They were very abstract, and I'm sure people of that time weren't really used to seeing things like that. It's nice to break the mould sometimes and do something it's a little bit different. Okay, so that's that side of her face. Now what I'm, oh hang on, I've missed a bit. I've just missed this little bit around the eye. It wouldn't matter because I can always come back and do it anyway. Right, so that part of her face is done. I'm not going to do this side because I'm a bit worried about if I start painting this side, the colours will bleed in together and it will create a mess. That was the trick I didn't quite understand when I was younger. So I've learnt that now. What I would like to do is do a bit of her hair, so I'm going to do this side of her hair, and I'd like to do a purpley colour. So I've got two purples on here. I've got a very dark one and a really light one. I'm going to go with the dark one. So I'm just going to, I've got a tiny bit of water just to mix up this paint a bit because it's quite thick. But I don't want it to be too thin. I really want bold colour. Okay, so I'm going to start doing this bit of hair now. Oh, lovely, look at that colour, it's gorgeous. Just go over it. So really careful. Do a bit around her face first, and then that will dry first. Now, if your lines are not quite straight when you paint, they're a bit wobbly, don't worry too much, because don't forget at the end we are going to be outlining in black marker pen, so it allows you to have a few little wobbles. Don't panic too much about it. And you can always straighten things up a bit later using your finer paintbrush. Around the ears. So you can neaten this up as you go. Glad I chose this colour, it's gorgeous. Notice that I use this colour a lot because look, that's all I've got left. It is my favourite colour. It's that Cadbury's chocolate purple. I think that's probably why I like it. Oh, it's so relaxing doing this, it's lovely. Nice music on would be great. I need some more paint in a minute. Quite a big area. I'm thinking, haven't got much of this colour left yet. I've decided to paint a big area with it, so probably not a good plan. I've probably got enough just to do her hair, and then at some stage I'm going to have to buy some more. This is why I've not used felt tip pen, because I'm a bit worried that I haven't got enough ink left in my felt tip pens to colour large areas. Right, so that's her hair done, and don't forget, if it dries a bit patchy you can always go over it. Right, just a little bit now down there. I'm going to turn my sketchbook round again just so I can get to it and I'm not leaning over wet paint. So if I'm leaning over areas, I'm going to end up making a right mess. Done that many times. You learn by your mistakes in the end. So just this little bit of hair, and then I'm going to show you how to do a small area. So it's going to take you quite a while to paint your whole portrait, but just enjoy it. Enjoy having this really peaceful time. Enjoy just, it's so nice. I don't know what it is, it's that feel of the paint going onto the paper that just makes it so relaxing. And just splaying out your bristles on your paintbrush. It feels so good, it's great. And it's, I don't know, there's something comforting about the bright colours as well. Seeing your quite bland white page come to life with colour. Okay, I'm going to leave that there, and I'm just going to let a little bit of it dry, and I will show you how to do those small areas. Now, as you can see, I've painted my background colours, and I now need to go in and do the detailed parts. So I'm going to start with the eyes. So I've got some clean water because I'm going to use white and a nice clean paintbrush. I'm using my smaller paintbrush to do the eyes because it's not a very big space. So the whites of the eyes are being done first. And just quickly put a bit of colour in there just so that can dry. I know the paper's white anyway, but you do need to paint the whites of the eyes in, because you just leave it as white paper, it just makes it look unfinished. So I don't think you can skip this step out, you still need to do it. So just paint those in like that. And this is why I've needed the smaller brush, because it's a really fiddly area. Right, well that's the whites of the eyes done. Now, my next thing is I'm going to do the lips. So I'm not going to do the rest of the eye at the moment, because I'm just going to let the white just dry. So I'm going to wet my paintbrush and just wipe it with my paper towel. And then I'm going to work on the lips. So I'll probably start with this side first. I might use that red colour, because I've not used that yet, so that might be quite nice. And I'm just going to really carefully and steadily paint this bit. Now you might want to, I've got a blob on there, so it's a good idea to, this is why I like to have the paper towels, because if you get a blob like that, you can just get rid of it. I find that I like to turn my sketchbook round to get to these fiddly areas. Now just keep an eye on your water pot. Just move it out of your way just while you're turning your book round, and then I can easily get to those tricky areas. I definitely need a little bit of water and a bit more paint. Just outlining it first and then moving into filling the detail. That lump is still there, that's really annoying. Let's get rid of that. It happens sometimes with paints. Some more paint. I'm trying to be really careful. This is a very small area. It takes a lot of concentration. And just that tiny bit there. Okay. I've done that bit. Now I'm probably going to turn my book round just so that I'm not leaning in wet paint, and I'm going to go for that lovely pink colour, dark pink. I've not really used it as a dark pink yet. Now it's kind of dried already on that edge, so I should be okay to apply a thick layer of paint next to it. But if it's too wet, don't. Go on to another area and work on that area first. These paints are really quite lovely and they dry fairly quickly, but obviously you don't want your paints running into each other. So getting into that corner there, I've used the tip of my paintbrush in the corner and then I've dragged it away. And again, to do this bit, paintbrush in the corner and drag the paintbrush away, and then you get a nice sharp corner there. It's made it a lot easier actually. And again, you'll see me tilting this all the time just so I can get in. So yeah, you haven't got to sit with your sketchbook like this. Just keep turning things around. These colours are really lovely and bright. You can always go over areas if you think there's a few wishy-washy areas where the paint's gone a bit thin. Just go over it. And obviously once it's dried, and if you think there's enough, I dropped some water on here, so I might need to put a bit of orange over there in a minute. Right, so that's done. Now I'm going back to the eyes. I think I'm going to use green, so I need to wash my paintbrush again, get rid of the pink. I haven't got a green on my page, so I need to find a green. I'm just going to wipe the excess water off, track a green down, quite like that colour, so I'm going to use some of that. Look at that, it's really lovely. I do like green. Only need a tiny splodge really, even that's probably a bit too much. And I'm just going to do the outer part of the eye, the iris. Now, this might not be completely dry because I've only just done it, so I'm going to have to be careful. I've got to be careful not to lean on the lips and be careful not to lean on the white part of the eye. Now, it is dry enough for me to do this, but if it was still really wet, I wouldn't do that yet. I'll probably go on to the eyebrows while it dried. So just check. If you think it's too wet, don't attempt it. Let it dry off a bit more. And now, with my other paintings, the actual pupil, I didn't paint black. I actually used a felt tip pen to do the pupil. But I'll leave a space for it so I can see how big my pupils are meant to be. And with the eyebrows, now when I did the man, and I painted him, I painted his eyebrows and I cheated a little bit when I did my lady. I actually thought, I wonder how they'd look if I just used the felt tip pen. And actually, they looked the same as the painted version. So if you don't feel steady enough to do the eyebrows with your paintbrush, then just use the pen. So I might leave mine and use the pen instead. So we go, nearly finished then. Next one, and again, don't forget you've got wet areas, you don't want to lean on them. So again, being very careful. It's actually easier to paint with your paintbrush being quite loaded. because we need this to be bright and quite gorgeous. Your colours being quite vivid. I find quite a lot of paint on the brush helps, and it helps you to draw straighter lines the more paint you've got on your paintbrush. Obviously you don't want a huge heap stacking up, but you need to have enough. I'm going to turn that round again so I can access it from this end without any paint being wet. Nearly there. A tiny bit of water on my paintbrush. Right, now that needs to dry. It looks a bit weird without the pupils being done. So it needs to dry. Now what I'm going to show you, I know it's not completely dry, but I'm going to show you in an area that is dry. So I'm not going to do this on the lips or the eyes at the moment. You'll need a felt pen. So mine, this is like one of the ones you get at school. So if it's not too thin, but it's not a really fat chunky one either. And you're just going to go over some of your lines. So try not to lean on my wet eye, because that would be terrible. You will probably wait until all of yours is dry before you attempt this. That would be the best idea. But I know that if you've just finished painting it, you're not going to want to hang around for ages. So like me, if you just want to get on with it, then just be careful of these wet areas and don't attempt to outline them until those bits are dry. So I'm going to try and attempt to do the nose without leaning on my eyes. I'm going to just get my felt pen and just very carefully stop, go around the outline. Now, I don't know about you, it depends how much control you have over your pen. Somebody with really good control could probably go down the whole thing in one attempt. I don't trust myself, so I'm going to do it in separate attempts. So I'm going to now do this line. It helps if your hand is resting on the page, but just make sure definitely not on the wet paint. And this, I need to be careful with this bit because it is wet. So I'm just going to do this part of the nose, turn it round so I'm away from the wet paint, down the face. I can't do the lips yet because they're not dry. And you can see it starts to stand out. Right, now I could do my eyebrow. So I'm going to, because I cheated, don't tell anybody. Doing it with pen, not paint. And just outlining it first, and I could simply colour it in. No one will know I didn't paint it. It just looks as good. And then colour the whole thing in. And your Picasso masterpiece starts to become more beautiful, and it starts jumping out of the page. Let's see, it looks a bit better with eyebrows. It'd be really nice to see what you've done. You could, instead of doing hair, you could have given her a hat. She didn't have to have hair. Could create different hairstyles. And my gentleman's got a moustache, so it's up to you whether yours has a moustache or has spiky hair. It's up to you. So that's the eyebrow done. Now, oh, I could do this bit. So you've got to be really careful when you do this. Make sure that you're nice and calm. You might need to go back over an area if you don't quite like it, or if you had a bit of a wobble, it's fine. It's easy to go back and go over it. And then around the face, and that's it. You build your confidence up after a while and you'll find that you get quicker at doing this. But just try to keep it as steady as you can. And make sure your hand's leaning. If it's leaning on your sketchbook, it just makes it easier to have that control. Right, now I'm going to let you get on with yours. So I will show you what mine looks like at the end, and it will be really lovely if I get to see some of your work. So have fun, and remember, you can do this however you want. Have lots of practices in your sketchbook, and then think about the colour as you go along. I never know what I'm going to end up with, so there's never any plan until I just start working with the colours on the page. Right, good luck with yours, and I hope to see your masterpieces very shortly.